Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Kari's Confessions, a nonprofit exec tells all. I'm Kari Anderson, your host and principal with Incite Consulting. My podcast explores the tools and strategies that help nonprofit leaders grow their impact and build resilient organizations. As always, I'm here to share some hard earned lessons and honest truths from life inside the nonprofit world. For those of you that I've not met before, I've spent 25 plus years in the nonprofit sector in leadership roles with 7 organizations. Now, I provide coaching and consulting services to ensure that nonprofits like yours have the structure, systems, and practices to do your best work. Wherever I go, I continue to hear that nonprofit execs need a space to gather, to receive tools, feedback, and advice that encourages them to stay the course. It doesn't matter if you're in a village of 182 or a metropolis of millions, nonprofit work is both gratifying and lonely. I'm here to make sure that you have a chance to breathe, laugh, smirk, and get excited again about the important work that you do. So today, we're going to talk about moving from resolutions to results, and specifically why strategic goals matter for your nonprofit. So I want to bring your attention to the following: New Year's promises. Every January, it seems nonprofit leaders everywhere make promises. I was no exception to this. This year, we'll expand our reach. This year, we'll secure more funding. This year, we'll make a bigger difference. Sound familiar? If you work in the nonprofit sector, you've probably said or at least thought some version of those words more times than you can count. And here's the uncomfortable truth: good intentions don't translate to impact. The nonprofit sector runs on passion and purpose, it's true. And that passion matters. It's why this work exists in the first place. But passion alone won't feed families, house the homeless, or change systems. The gap between what we hope to achieve and what we actually accomplish often comes down to one critical missing piece: strategic goals that drive mission driven results. Resolutions feel good, they're inspiring. They rally the troops at board meetings and at staff retreats. But without clear, measurable objectives tied to actionable plans, those resolutions evaporate faster than your New Year's gym membership. Strategic goals are the bridge between aspiration and achievement. They transform "we want to help more people" into "we will serve 500 additional families by Q4 through our expanded food distribution program." That's the difference between hoping for change and creating it. So here's a challenge I hear frequently from clients. Um, why are my good intentions aren't enough? Why can't I actually exercise that muscle? So we'll talk honestly for a moment. Every nonprofit I know is driven by deep commitment. People care. They work long hours. They stretch themselves thin because their mission matters. But passion alone won't pay the bills or fix deeply rooted issues. Nonprofit challenges pile up quickly. For example, budgets that barely cover basic needs, staff members juggling 3 or 4 roles, an endless list of urgent tasks demanding immediate attention. And when resources are limited, and they almost always are, leaders are forced to make impossible choices every single day. For example, do we invest in that new program, or do we just try to keep the lights on? The real danger shows up when organizations rely solely on goodwill without a clear plan. Broad goals like helping our community or making a difference may sound inspiring, but they offer no guidance when tough decisions hit. And that lack of clarity leads to something many nonprofits struggle with but rarely name out loud. It happened to me. What is that? It's mission drift. Suddenly you're chasing every grant opportunity. Sound familiar? Saying yes to every request. I did. Launching programs that seem related but really aren't central. Your impact spreads thinner and thinner. And here's the hard truth: the societal challenges nonprofits tackle, like homelessness, educational inequity, environmental degradation, they're complex. They don't have quick fixes. They require targeted strategies and not scattered attempts. Without a clear strategy, even the most passionate teams can end up exhausted, frustrated, and spinning their wheels, working incredibly hard but making little progress on the problems they were created to solve. So I want to ground this conversation specifically talking about what strategic goals are specifically and why they matter. So, when I talk about strategic goals, here's what I mean. Strategic goals are specific time bound outcomes that turn your mission into reality. They're not vague aspirations, they're not wish lists, and they definitely are not resolutions that fade by February. They demand clarity, precision, and accountability. Here's the simplest way to understand the difference. An intention sounds like this: we want to help more families. A strategic goal sounds like this: we will provide housing assistance to 150 families experiencing homelessness within 18 months, measured through our case management data. See the difference? A strategic goal answers four essential questions. Who are we serving? What exactly will change? By when? And how will we know if it worked? That level of precision does something powerful. It creates a roadmap that rises above the daily chaos of nonprofit life. When your team understands exactly where you're headed, they can prioritize resources, align programs, make decisions that consistently advance the mission, and strategic goals give everyone, from board members to frontline staff, a shared language for success. And that shared language matters more than we often realize. So here's some benefits that you can actually start to see immediately when we actually set strategic goals. So one is clarity and focus in terms of you anchoring your mission. So one of the biggest benefits of strategic planning always is organizational clarity. Clarity turns a broad mission statement into a focused plan for action. Without it, nonprofits are constantly tempted to chase every opportunity that sounds good or feels urgent. And mission drift doesn't happen all at once, it happens one small yes at a time. Strategic planning forces honest evaluation. This is where tools like a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats become incredibly useful. Not because a SWOT is trendy, but because a SWOT requires leadership teams to face uncomfortable truths. Questions like, which programs truly leverage our strengths? Where are we spreading ourselves too thin? What external threats could derail our work if we continue to ignore them? Here's an example. Imagine a youth development nonprofit that discovers, through careful evaluation, that their after school tutoring program consistently produces measurable academic gains. Meanwhile, their summer camp struggles with attendance and outcomes. That insight creates a choice. They can A, invest more deeply in tutoring, B, transform or discontinue the camp, C, free up staff capacity for what actually works. Strategic goals make those decisions possible. They move organizations away from emotional attachment and towards mission alignment. So when someone suggests a new program because it feels like a good fit, you have a framework to evaluate it, not just a gut reaction. Instead of saying we want to serve more families, strategic planning leads to goals like increase participation in financial literacy workshops by 40% within 18 months through partnerships with 3 community centers. That level of clarity improves nonprofit efficiency by removing uncertainty about what success actually looks like. So here's an additional benefit: stakeholder engagement, specifically by building ownership and trust. So when we engage in strategic planning, it works best when it's when it's not created in isolation. This is why boards don't create plans by themselves or staff don't create plans by themselves. It's a joint effort and it also includes your community. So when nonprofits involve board members, staff, volunteers, donors, and even program participants in this planning process, something powerful happens. The strategy becomes shared. Board members who actively shape the plan, rather than simply approving it, develop a deeper connection to the mission. Staff members who bring real world insight from day to day operations, helping ensure goals are ambitious but realistic. Volunteers and donors who understand why decisions are made are more likely to stay committed, even when those decisions involve tough trade offs. And that's key because strategic planning requires saying no. Open conversations about what the organization will not pursue build trust, and prevent mission drift driven by individual agendas. When stakeholders are part of these conversations, they move from passive supporters to active stewards of the organization's future. That's not just engagement, it's ownership. So, one more benefit for you to consider when we're talking about strategic goals and strategic planning: organizational resilience and preparing you for the unexpected. So, if the past few years, this last year in particular, have taught nonprofits anything, it's this: the unexpected will happen. Funding shifts, leadership transitions, economic downturns, community crises. Strategic planning changes how organizations respond. Instead of reacting in panic mode, nonprofits that engage in scenario planning and risk assessment are better prepared. They've already asked, what happens if a major funder pulls out? What happens if our executive director leaves? Folks, we all leave, right? What programs must continue no matter what? This proactive approach strengthens resilience. When resources get tight, strategic goals help leaders make faster, clearer decisions about where to focus limited time and money. And that clarity can mean the difference between surviving a crisis and being overwhelmed by it. Strategic planning doesn't prevent challenges, but it equips organizations like yours to face them with confidence and adaptability. Now, here's one of my favorite benefits regarding strategic goal setting and strategic planning, and that's the ability to make data driven decision and that we measure what matters. So, another major shift strategic planning brings to organizations, if you're willing, is moving from gut feelings to actual evidence when making decisions. When nonprofits establish measurable objectives and track them consistently, they gain the insight needed to allocate resources wisely. Key performance indicators, or KPIs, become a compass for you. Metrics might include the number of beneficiaries served per dollar spent, program completion rates, volunteer retention, donor acquisition cost versus lifetime value. These numbers aren't about bureaucracy, they're about learning. Data reveals which programs create real impact and which drain energy without results. And when organizations regularly analyze that data, they create a learning loop. Test assumptions, measure outcomes, adjust strategies, improve continuously. That's how nonprofits move from doing a lot to doing what actually works. So let's move this from theory to practice in terms of how we make these strategic goals real. So a strategic plan only matters if it's implemented. No more congratulating yourself or just having a planning session, patting yourself on the back and saying, we're done. Oh no, this is just the start. And so this implementation phase is where most organizations stumble. The key is breaking big goals into actionable steps. That means translating each strategic goal into specific projects, assigning clear ownership, because ambiguity absolutely kills momentum, setting realistic timelines with milestones, identifying required resources up front. A goal like increasing program reach by 30% becomes real when it's broken into quarterly targets, outreach strategies, and named leaders responsible for execution. And just as important, progress must be reviewed. So, monthly check ins for operational plans, quarterly reviews for strategic goals. I'd suggest those monthly check ins with your staff partners at staff meetings, the quarterly reviews minimally at a longer board meeting. These moments create space to celebrate wins, troubleshoot challenges, and pivot when data suggests a better path forward. The strategic plan becomes a living guide, not just a dusty document on a shelf. So here's some final thoughts as we get ready to head out for the day. Your organization's potential extends far beyond good intentions. Strategic planning transforms leadership from reactive to proactive, from scattered to focused, from hopeful to impactful. The distance between where you are and where you want to be. It's not a gap, it's a roadmap waiting to be drawn. Every nonprofit success story begins with one decisive choice: moving from resolutions to results. So start today. Gather your team, ask the hard questions, define what success actually looks like for your organization. because your community doesn't need another well meaning nonprofit. They need your inspired action, backed by clear strategic goals that deliver measurable change. The work you do matters too much to leave to chance. Thanks for joining me today for Kari's Confessions, a nonprofit exec tells all. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with a colleague or board member. Make sure to follow me on your favorite streaming platforms. And for additional resources and tools, follow me on LinkedIn. You can also check out my website at inciteconsultinggroup.com. Until next time, have a great week.